You wake before the city wakes. The noise hasn't started. The light is still ash, not fire. And in that sliver of time, something whispers a question you've been too busy to hear. What if the battle you're fighting is the very thing keeping you from what you seek? Today, the teaching is not about victory. It's about the moment you lower your fists and discover that life was never the opponent. In the next minutes, you'll see how surrender is not collapse, but precision. How silence teaches what shouting never could. How the door you've been pushing opens when you finally step back. This is not theory wrapped in incense. This is the cartography of those who stopped fighting and found the road. Here is the scene happening now. A person sits in traffic. The horn doesn't help. The fist on the wheel tightens. But something shifts. The breath slows. The gaze lifts. Between buildings, a thread of sky. And in that crack, clarity arrives uninvited. 5 truths appear when resistance falls. You see what was always there. You hear the rhythm beneath the rush. You receive what struggle blocked. You become available to grace. You discover that peace is not the absence of storms, but the end of war with them. Let this begin. The common enemy has a name, the tyranny of force. That voice inside that insists more effort, more control, more noise will bend reality to your script. It sounds like strength. It wears the mask of dignity. But underneath, it's exhaustion pretending to be power. The city teaches this lie well. Push harder, sleep less, demand more. Fight for your place, fight for your time, fight for respect. Fight until the knuckles bleed and call it progress. Buddhism offers a different lens, the lens of Wu Wei, effortless action, not laziness disguised as philosophy, but the mastery of knowing when to act and when to allow. Picture water. It does not fight the rock, it moves around it. Over centuries, the rock becomes sand. The water remains water. That is not weakness, that is time understanding its own power. In ancient monasteries, there's a practice called shikantaza, just sitting. No mantra to repeat, no visualization to build, no goal to achieve. You sit, the mind storms, thoughts parade like a carnival. And you do nothing. You do not fight them, you do not chase them, you witness. In that witnessing without war, something astonishing occurs. The storm tires, the parade ends. What remains is vast, quiet, and awake. That stillness was always there. The fighting hid it. A story walks through centuries. A farmer loses his horse. The neighbors say, "Terrible luck." He answers, "Maybe." The horse returns with wild horses. The neighbors say, "Wonderful luck." He answers, "Maybe." His son breaks his leg taming a wild horse. The neighbors say, "Terrible luck." He answers, "Maybe." The army comes to draft young men. They skip his son because of the broken leg. The neighbors say, "Wonderful luck." He answers, "Maybe." That maybe is not indifference. It is the refusal to fight with the unfolding of things. It is trust in a pattern larger than one chapter. You apply this in the city's pulse. The job offer falls through. Maybe the relationship ends. Maybe the project fails. Maybe you stop writing the verdict before the story finishes. That pause, that space between stimulus and certainty, is where wisdom lives. When you stop fighting with what is, you start dancing with what's next. There is a muscular truth here. Acceptance is not passive. It is the most active stance available. It says, I see reality without the filter of should. I act from clarity, not from the fever of denial. When a diagnosis arrives, fighting it with rage doesn't heal the body. Accepting it, asking the right questions, following wise counsel, caring for yourself with revolutionary tenderness that opens doors. Fighting reality is like screaming at rain. Accepting reality is carrying an umbrella and finding beauty in the sound on the roof. The first revelation comes when resistance drops. You see what was always there. The mind at war is a mind with tunnel vision. It sees only the obstacle, the injustice, the gap between expectation and event. But when the fist opens, the gaze widens. You notice the details you missed while fighting, the way light bends through glass, the expression on a stranger's face, the smell of bread from a corner bakery, the tenderness in your own fatigue. Presence is the gift of non-resistance. You cannot be present while battling the moment. The two are opposites. One is here, the other is at war with here, demanding elsewhere. When you stop demanding, the moment becomes generous. It shows you textures, colors, micro-miracles. A child laughing on a bench, an old man feeding pigeons with the precision of a jeweler. The architecture of clouds assembling and dissolving like thoughts made visible. Buddhist teaching names this suchness tathata. Reality as it is, without the distortion of preference, not reality as you wish, fear, or negotiate. Just this, the breath entering cool, the breath leaving warm, the street humming its urban sutra. When you stop fighting, suchness becomes your companion, and suchness is startlingly intimate. The second revelation. You hear the rhythm beneath the rush. Every city has two soundtracks. The surface one, honking, drilling, shouting, the machinery of urgency. And beneath it, a older rhythm. The rhythm of seasons even on asphalt. The rhythm of tides in human energy. The rhythm of breath, heartbeat, the silent agreement between gravity and bone. When you fight, you only hear the noise. When you stop, the deeper music rises. There is a practice. Sit in a public place, a park, a subway platform, a cafe. Close your eyes briefly. Let the noise wash over you without labeling it. Don't call it annoying or pleasant. Let it be sound. Then, underneath the chaos, listen for one constant tone. It might be the hum of electricity, the distant engine, your own pulse in your ears. Focus there. That single thread of continuity teaches something the 10,000 sounds cannot. Constancy exists even in flux. You are that constancy. In monasteries, bells mark time, not to control it, but to honor it. Each ring says, this moment just arrived, this moment just left. When you stop fighting time, demanding its slow or speed, you start hearing its actual pace, and its pace is neither fast nor slow. It simply is. Aligning with that is rhythm is the end of struggle with duration. You stop checking the clock like an enemy. You consult it like a map. The third revelation, you receive what struggle blocked. Clenched fists cannot hold gifts. An open hand can. When you fight, you create density, tension in the body, rigidity in thought, contraction in the heart. That density repels. It signals to the world, I am closed. But when resistance falls, porosity returns. You become available to insight, available to kindness from unexpected sources, available to solutions that don't arrive through force. There is an old image. A farmer tries to open a rosebud with his fingers, petal by petal, because he is impatient for its beauty. The flower dies in his hands. Another farmer waters the root, trusts the sun, and one morning the rose opens by itself, flawless. The teaching is not about roses, it is about every unfolding in your life, the idea that needs time, the healing that asks patience, the relationship that will or won't bloom on its own terms, not yours. When you stop forcing, you allow arrival. And what arrives that way lasts. Synchronicity notices the non-resistant, call it grace, call it luck, call it the universe responding. When you stop pushing so hard in one direction, peripheral vision returns. You see the side door you missed, you hear the suggestion you dismissed, you meet the person who carries a key you didn't know you needed. Struggle creates noise, stillness creates signal. The signal was always broadcasting, you were just too loud to hear. The fourth revelation. You become available to grace. Grace is not religious sentimentality. It is the name for what arrives unearned, the kindness of a stranger, the perfect timing of a call, the book that falls open to the page you needed, the dream that solves the problem logic couldn't. When you live in combat mode, grace has no entrance. You are fortified, barricaded, at war. But when you soften, when you stop fighting, the walls lower. Grace walks in like it was always invited. Buddhist cosmology speaks of interdependence, dependent origination. Nothing arises alone. Everything is woven. When you fight, you yank one thread and tangle 10. When you stop fighting, you let the weave organize itself. And the pattern that emerges is often wiser than your small plan. Trusting that pattern is not naivety. It is humility that recognizes your script is one draft among infinite possibilities. Gratitude is the language grace speaks, not the performative kind that decorates social media. The quiet kind. The kind that notices the water runs clear, the lungs work without being asked, the earth holds you without negotiation. When you stop fighting, gratitude becomes automatic. You see the abundance that struggle made invisible, a roof, a meal, a moment without pain. These are not minor. They are the foundation, the fifth revelation. You discover that peace is not the absence of storms, but the end of war with them. The city will not quiet for you. The body will age, relationships will shift, plans will collapse and rebuild, loss will visit, so will joy. The weather of life does not consult you, but your relationship with that weather is entirely in your hands. Fighting the storm exhausts you and changes nothing. Learning to stand in the storm without becoming the storm, that is mastery. There is a Zen image, a tree in a typhoon. The rigid tree breaks. The flexible tree bends, and when the wind passes, it rises again. You are that tree. And every refusal to fight what you cannot control is an act of bending that keeps you whole. Peace is not a location, it is a practice, the practice of not adding your fist to life's blows. Equanimity is the word Buddhism uses. Not indifference, but an even keel. The heart wide enough to hold joy and sorrow without tipping. When good news comes, you receive it without clinging. When hard news comes, you receive it without shattering. Both are weather. Both will pass. Your steadiness is the ground they pass over, and that ground can be trained, not through force, but through the gentle repetition of returning. Returning to breath. Returning to now. Returning to the question, what can I do here that is kind, clear, and useful? Let practical gestures enter. The pause before the reply. When provoked, the impulse is to strike back instantly with words, with tone, with silence that punishes. The practice is a 3-breath gap. Inhale, hold, exhale 3 times. In that pause, the fever breaks. What emerges after is response, not reaction. Response carries dignity, reaction carries regret. The body as teacher. When resistance grips you, it shows in the body first. Jaw tight, shoulders high, breath shallow, belly hard. These are symptoms of inner war. The antidote is simple and immediate. Soften the jaw, drop the shoulders, lengthen the exhale, let the belly be loose. The body believes what you show it peace, and the mind begins to trust that peace is possible. The practice of allowing. Emotions arrive like weather: anger, fear, sadness, restlessness. The old habit is to fight them, suppress, deny, shame yourself for feeling. The new habit is to allow, not to act on every feeling, but to let it move through you without resistance. Name it softly. There is anger, there is fear. Do not become it, witness it. Anger arises, anger passes. The sky of your awareness remains, the art of the question. When stuck, the mind defaults to statements. This is wrong. This won't work. I can't. Statements close doors, questions open them. What if? What else? What now? What is one small step I can take? Questions shift you from combat to curiosity, and curiosity is the opposite of resistance. It leans in, it investigates, it finds cracks in walls that looked solid. There are teachers in unexpected forms, traffic. The slowness you cannot control becomes a dojo. You can curse it and arrive tense, or you can breathe with it, listen to music that soothes, notice the architecture of patience being built inside you. Either way, you arrive. One way you arrive, frayed. The other, you arrive practiced. The choice redefines the commute. Illness, the body's rebellion or its desperate message, fighting it with rage changes nothing. Listening to it, asking what it needs, rest, movement, medicine, boundaries, that is alliance. The body is not the enemy. It is the house you live in. When you stop fighting it, you start caring for it with the attention it deserves. Loss, the person who left, the dream that died, the version of yourself you outgrew. Resistance says it shouldn't have happened. Acceptance says it did. And now I walk forward carrying what I learned. Grief is not fought, it is companioned. You sit with it. You let it teach you the weight of love, and in time, the weight becomes a different kind of strength. There are lineages of non-resistance. The Christian mystics spoke of surrender to divine will. Sufi poets danced their surrender into ecstasy. Taoist sages moved like water. Indigenous wisdom honored the cycles without demanding they stop. All point to the same truth. The universe is larger than your agenda. Aligning with it is not defeat. It is coming home. In the city, this looks ordinary. You stop insisting the train come faster. You read a page while you wait. You stop demanding your colleagues see things your way. You state your truth clearly and let it land where it lands. You stop fighting your child's temperament. You learn their language and guide from there. Small surrenders, each one a liberation. The enemy of non-resistance is the illusion of total control. The belief that if you just try harder, shout louder, plan better, you can script every outcome. But life is not a script. It is improvisation. The best actors listen and respond. They don't force the scene. They trust the scene. And magic happens in that trust. Buddhism teaches impermanence. Everything changes. Fighting that truth is fighting gravity. When you accept it, you stop clinging to what is leaving and start noticing what is arriving. The job ends. The new skill emerges. The friend drifts. The stranger becomes close. Resistance makes you rigid. Acceptance makes you fluid. And fluidity survives what rigidity cannot. One monk story lingers. A student asks, "What is enlightenment?" The master says, "Chopping wood, carrying water." The student is confused. Before enlightenment, chopping wood, carrying water. After enlightenment, chopping wood, carrying water. The student asks, "Then what changes?" The master smiles. Before, you fight the wood. After, you meet the wood. The task is the same. The relationship transforms. When you stop fighting, the day doesn't become easier. It becomes clearer. The hard things remain hard. But you stop adding the second arrow, the story that it shouldn't be hard, that you're failing because it is. The first arrow is pain. The second is resistance to pain. Drop the second, and the first becomes manageable. Here is a ritual for the weary fighter. At day's end, sit briefly. Recall 3 moments you fought today. Maybe you fought traffic, fought a comment, fought your tiredness. Name them without judgment. Then ask, what would it have looked like not to fight? Maybe you breathed in traffic. Maybe you let the comment pass. Maybe you rest without guilt. Imagine that alternate day. Let it teach you. Tomorrow, choose one fight to lay down, just one. Build the muscle slowly. Share this teaching with someone who is tired of war. Subscribe to walk this path of gentle strength together, because the art of living awake in the city is knowing when to push and when to open your hand. And most of the time, the hand that opens receives more than the fist that clenches. When you turn off this episode, look around. Notice one thing you've been resisting: the weather, the weight, the ache, the uncertainty. And for just this moment, stop fighting it. Let it be exactly as it is. Feel what shifts. That shift is the beginning. The city remains loud, but you, inside the noise, are learning to be still. And from that stillness, everything life wanted to show you finally has permission to arrive.